People who have genuinely ruined their life. What's your story? Losing my dream job. At some point in my life, things took a turn I never saw coming. I was diagnosed with schizophrenia and ended up being hospitalized 5 different times. It was a dark and confusing period. Eventually, I was put on a medication that dulled my ability to think clearly. It felt like my mind had been shut off. My reasoning, my awareness, everything that made me feel in control was just gone. Somewhere during that time, I resigned from my job, completely by accident. I do not even remember how it happened exactly. But once it was done, it was like the door slammed shut. I tried reaching out to my former employer to explain, to undo the mistake, to get a second chance. But they never responded. No one answered my calls or emails. I was just ghosted. That job meant everything to me. It was my dream. I worked in a field where what I did actually made a difference, helping save lives in car crashes. It gave my life purpose. And the work hit close to home, too. Back in 2016, a family friend, someone I was really close to, was killed by a drunk driver. That tragedy fueled my passion for what I did. I wanted to prevent others from going through what we did. Now it has been 3 years, and I still have not been able to get another job. I honestly think that company flagged me in some way. Like, maybe they believe I quit and now it shows up on background checks or something. I do not even know what I am supposed to put on a resume anymore. Because in my heart, I never meant to leave. Too much optimism can be dangerous. I've got a family member who's the ultimate optimist. Whenever someone tells me to be more optimistic, I just think about him. He and his wife once had solid careers. They even owned a business together and had a house. Things seemed to be going well. Then he decided to try his luck in the stock market, thinking everything would eventually work out. Well, it didn't. He lost over $500,000. They retired with no savings to fall back on, but he still believed everything would turn out fine. Even without any money in recent years, he kept playing the stock market, insisting he had to win eventually. His blind optimism didn't stop there. Cars became a big problem. In 6 months, he had 2 accidents. The first was because his brakes failed. Nobody really knows what happened. By then, he was 83. We tried to tell him he probably shouldn't be driving, and definitely couldn't afford a new car. But he bought a used one anyway. During the second accident, he admits he actually fell asleep behind the wheel. His wife was badly injured and later died from those injuries. Still, he got yet another car. He insists everything will be fine, no bad things will happen. Eventually, his insurance rates shot up so high he couldn't afford them anymore. Instead of giving up the car, he started talking about driving for Lyft to make some money. We're still trying to talk him out of it. He's always jumping into new things, repeating that things will work out. But the rest of the family is carrying the weight. We keep paying for everything because he's terrible at managing money and refuses to prepare for the worst. Just recently, he bought a scooter to replace the car, while we cover his groceries. And yes, he's still gambling on the stock market. Optimism is great, sometimes. But when it's blind, it's dangerous. Sometimes you have to be realistic so you don't end up ruining not just your own life, but the lives of everyone around you. From top of the class to rock bottom. He was my friend, someone I'd known since elementary school. He graduated at the top of our class and had a full scholarship to UCLA. But during his senior year of high school, things started falling apart. He got hooked on prescription drugs. So bad that at one point, he just stopped showing up to school for 2 whole months. Somehow, he wasn't even kicked out. After graduation, it only got worse. He was kicked out of college in his first year because he wouldn't stop smoking weed and cigarettes in his dorm. That caused fights with his roommate, and the school finally had enough. After that, he began selling cocaine full-time and stayed addicted to prescription pills. All the while, he was still living with his dad. The two of them shared the same house, but it was like they didn't exist in each other's lives. His dad would leave for work, come back, and just lock himself in his room. He watched his son spiral out of control, abusing drugs and selling cocaine, but didn't, or couldn't, do anything to help. A lot happened over the next couple of years, too much to get into here, but his mental health took a huge hit. I honestly don't even think he's mentally well anymore. Eventually, he got caught on a warrant he'd been running from for months. I'm not sure what it was for, and spent 3 months in prison. He got out on parole, but just a month later, he did something terrible. He burned his dad's house down. That got him arrested again for arson, and he went back to prison. Last I heard, he was in a mental health facility. I don't know much more than that. It's the story of how one of my closest friends, the smartest kid in our graduating class, completely destroyed his own life. Words have consequences. There was a guy the first went to high school with, real standout on the football field. He had a full ride offer on the table from multiple colleges. He was a serious athlete, and schools were lining up to get him. One of his top picks was Penn State. He went for a visit and met up with a friend who was already attending the school. While they were hanging out, the friend brought up a story he'd heard in one of his classes. It was about a local girl who had been sexually assaulted. A horrible situation, and it had made the rounds on campus. And that's when this guy, full ride scholarship and all, decided to open his mouth in the worst way possible. In the middle of a busy restaurant, loud enough for people around to hear, he said something disgusting and racist about the victim. I will not repeat the words exactly, but it was deeply offensive, full of slurs and cruel, dehumanizing language. As it turned out, someone from the admissions office was also in that same restaurant and heard every word. Next thing he knew, he was called in by the school. They told him flat out that he had been accused of making comments that went against the university's values. Instead of owning up or showing any kind of remorse, he doubled down. He went on a full-blown rant on Facebook, calling the situation pussification, and blaming some woman for reporting him. He threw around talk about his freedom of speech and acted like he was the victim. That post, his own public meltdown, was the final straw. Penn State pulled his scholarship. Other schools started noticing too. Coaches and admissions officers did their due diligence, checked out his social media, and quickly backed away. One by one, all those scholarship offers disappeared. All that talent, all that opportunity, gone. Not because of a mistake, but because of hate, pride, and a refusal to take responsibility for his own words. Betrayed by a caregiver, a close friend of mine became severely disabled after a serious medical issue. For about half a year, he needed full-time care while he worked on regaining his independence. His wife had to keep working, so they hired a daytime caregiver through a professional agency. It did not take long for one of the caregivers to stand out. There was just something about her that clicked, with both him and his wife. They got along well and ended up requesting her as much as they could. Occasionally, they even spent time together outside of her working hours. She seemed kind, hardworking, and had a warm presence. She was an immigrant, here legally, and most of her family was already living in the United States. She was in the middle of applying for citizenship and had a dream of opening her own daycare one day. She was doing great, her clients loved her, and her agency paid her a solid wage. My friend and his wife kept separate bank accounts. After his disability, he received a significant settlement, and since he needed help handling finances, the caregiver started assisting with some bills. That meant she saw his account info, including how much money was in there. About a month later, the bank flagged suspicious activity. Turns out, the caregiver had decided that saving up for her dream was taking too long. So, she stole a handful of checks from the back of his checkbook, forged his signature, and started spending like there was no tomorrow. She also made a few unauthorized credit card charges. Altogether, she stole over $20,000. She was eventually caught and charged, not just with forgery, but with something more serious: financial abuse of a dependent adult, since my friend was legally disabled at the time. She pleaded guilty, got a suspended sentence, and was ordered to repay the money. My friend wasn't too upset about her avoiding jail, though, because immigration was at the courthouse the day she was sentenced. She was taken into custody right then and there. Her future fell apart in an instant. She lost her dream of owning a business. She was deported to a developing country she barely remembered, separated from her entire family here, and permanently banned from returning to the United States. She also lost her path to citizenship, gone forever. The bank, by law, was considered the official victim in the forgery case, so they had to reimburse my friend. He got all of his stolen money back. Today, even though he still needs a wheelchair, my friend is doing much better. He has regained his independence and no longer needs daily care. But that betrayal definitely left a scar. Chase, a life wasted. There was this guy the first knew named Chase. We weren't really friends, he was just my buddy's roommate. Came from a pretty average, middle-class background, nothing too unusual. But somewhere along the way, he started running with a rough crowd. It was like he always had something to prove, trying hard to act tougher than he really was, just to fit in with guys who lived by street rules. Over the years, different people tried to help him. Friends, neighbors, even random folks who saw potential in him. But every time, he chose the wrong path. He'd steal from people who cared about him. There were rumors, dark ones, about him assaulting women. He flashed guns, acted like he was some kind of gangster. All the cliches, but in real life. The very first time I met him, I'll never forget it. He came stumbling into his place drunk, holding a brand new gun, his first one. And for no reason at all, he pointed it straight at me. Loaded. Told me to get the hell out of his house. That was my introduction to Chase. The last time I saw him was right before he got locked up the first time. He had broken into the home of an elderly neighbor to steal her prescription medication. That landed him in jail. Since then, it's been a revolving door. In and out of prison. And now, he's back inside, this time for attempted murder. The story's almost surreal, but it's real. He was dealing drugs to survive, small-time stuff. Then another dealer robbed him and took around $50 worth of product. Chase lost it. He broke into someone's home, stole a gun, and went after the guy who robbed him. The worst part? The entire thing was caught on a Walmart security camera. Every second of it, on tape. It's wild, but honestly, it's also tragic. Chase had 100 chances to turn his life around. But every single time, he chose the worst possible route. 10 years of terrible decisions. And now he's sitting in a cell, exactly where his choices led him. The one I let go. I got married and had a child with a man who, over time, revealed his true self, an alcoholic and a cocaine addict. He neglected both me and our child. There were nights, sometimes days, where he'd disappear completely. No calls. No messages. I would sit there not knowing if he was passed out somewhere or dead. That fear, that constant not knowing, was eating me alive. Later on, I found out he had also cheated on me. That broke something in me I couldn't fix. I finally saw the truth. I could not keep surviving in a house filled with chaos, with him and his other kids, and a life that never felt safe. So I packed up, moved out, and started the process of divorce. And during that time, when my life felt like it was finally beginning again, I met someone. He was unlike anyone I had ever known. He treated me with a kind of love I didn't believe existed anymore. He made me feel seen, safe, respected. Over time, he even opened his heart to my child. It took a little adjustment, sure, but he tried, and that meant everything. But then my ex-husband found out. He suddenly wanted me back. He begged, pleaded, promised me that we could fix things and be a family again. And in that moment, something in me wanted to believe it. I thought maybe I could give my child a whole family. Maybe, just maybe, he had changed. So I did something I will regret for the rest of my life. I left the man who truly loved me. The one who gave me hope again. I walked away from real love, and for nothing. My ex-husband went right back to being the man he always was. I thought I could help him get sober, that we could heal together, but it didn't last. Deep down, I knew I could never trust him again. Nothing would ever be the same. Eventually, I walked away again. But this time, I knew what I had lost. I had thrown away something rare and beautiful. I broke the heart of a man who never deserved it. And now he's out there with a wound I caused. I live every day knowing I did that. My heart is broken too. And it all happened because I let myself be fooled again, believing I could fix someone who never wanted to fix himself. A friend who lost his way. Back when I was in college, I had a friend. Let's just call him A to keep things private. A was the first real friend I'd had in a long time. During our first year at college, he was also my best friend. Now, just so you know, in the UK, college isn't the same as university. The course we were taking was an HND, a 2-year program at college that leads to finishing your final year at a university. This guy was seriously smart, especially in IT. He knew computers inside and out, hardware and software. He came from a decent background too. He was even helping out with his dad's airport logistics business. He started dating a girl from college, but that wasn't where the problems started. What really held him back was his motivation, or more like, the total lack of it, and his mood swings. I'm talking about some serious emotional stuff. He'd go from calm to furious over the smallest things, like a tiny change in plans or a minor inconvenience. It didn't take long for me to realize he was emotionally unstable. So, in our second year, I kept my distance. His girlfriend kept him busy, but even so, he was barely around. He stopped coming to classes and barely put any effort into his work. Everything had to be done his way, or it wasn't good enough. By the end of the year in July, he didn't pass the course. Most of the class did, but he had to do extra work over the summer. Then he tried applying to universities, but no one accepted him. He was late with applications, and his grades weren't great. Later on, I heard some worse news. His girlfriend broke up with him, and his dad's business was struggling too. They fought a lot. The worst part was when I found out from other friends that he'd been ripping him off for money. It wasn't about the cash, he took small amounts for weed or cigarettes and then disappeared. He'd stopped talking to them, making those friendships worthless. One friend even set up a job interview for him, but they didn't show up. When the friend called to check, I swore at him. That guy had potential. He could have been something really special. But now, no degree, no job, no experience, girlfriend gone, and he's cut off from most of our friends. Last I heard, he's still alive, but I honestly don't know in what shape. The comeback. That breakup was rough. Like, really bad. She dragged my name through the mud and destroyed my credit along the way. For nearly 10 years, I lived in that pain, convinced that she had ruined my entire life. But the truth, I let her. I kept taking her back over and over again. Every time she hurt me, I made the choice to stay. And when everything fell apart, I blamed her completely. But at some point, I had to face the truth, that I allowed it all to keep happening. That meant the years I spent feeling sorry for myself were also on me. That realization changed everything. From there, things started to turn around. It did not happen overnight, but it happened. Now, 5 years later, I am stable, happily married, and I run my own small tree surgery business. It is not huge, but it is profitable, and it is mine. I work hard, and I love what I do. I know my story is not the most tragic out there, but I want people to know, your life is never truly ruined. There is always a way back. Giving up is not an option. Let me say one more thing, even if it sounds harsh. In my experience, single mothers are usually single for a reason. I do not say that to be cruel, just honest. That was my personal experience, and it shaped how I approach relationships now. My ex-wife. I had a rough childhood, one full of trauma, pain, and isolation. I opened up to my wife about it early in our relationship. I told her about the emotional abuse I went through with my parents, how I was bullied, and how those experiences stayed with me. But instead of being a safe place for me, she started turning my past against me. She became overly suspicious of every woman I talked to. Slowly, she pulled me away from my friends, from the things I loved doing, my hobbies, my passions, everything that made me feel like myself. Whenever we had a fight, she would throw my trauma back in my face. She knew exactly what words would break me down, and she used them. It would trigger my post-traumatic stress disorder, and she always claimed afterward that she couldn't help it when she got angry. Over time, I stopped feeling like a real person. I was just doing whatever she wanted, walking on eggshells every day. I got to a point where I felt completely numb, like a zombie just trying to survive. I was dangerously close to giving up on life. So I finally went to therapy. That's when things got worse. As soon as the therapist started pointing out how controlling she was, she turned hostile. She did not want to hear it, and she definitely did not want to change. Then one day, I found out she was cheating. Not only that, I learned she had been in contact with another man even before we got married, someone she had a past with. Turns out they had stayed in touch all along, even going on group trips together, while she was accusing me of being unfaithful and suspicious of every woman I knew. Even after all that, I tried to forgive her. I wanted to believe her when she said it was just chats. But the panic attacks wouldn't stop. Something deep down told me there was more, but she refused to confront the guy or take any real responsibility. She would not even talk through it with me. In the end, she brought her whole family into it. They came over, and instead of facing the truth, she flipped everything around, accusing me of being mentally unstable and paranoid. And just like that, she walked out of my life. Chapter 1. I spent the last years of my grandfather's life living with him. He had told me that he wanted me to have the family house after he was gone. During the pandemic, he set up a legal trust, and I was there with him through the whole process. Toward the end of the meeting, the estate lawyer said they just needed one more hour to finish the paperwork to transfer the deed and put the house in my name. It was sometime in 2020. We had already been sitting there for hours, and I could see my grandfather was worn out. He looked tired, and honestly, I was too. I was also being careless and didn't realize how important that final step was. So I looked over at him and said something like, "Let's just wait. We can take care of it another time." But we never did. We both forgot and let it slip. Fast forward to 2023, my grandfather passed away. About a month after he died, his son, my uncle, showed up with eviction papers. He handed him to me and my mom, who is his own sister. That's when I found out he legally owns the house now, 100%. We've spent months battling the eviction in court. It has been exhausting, and we finally reached a settlement just a few weeks ago. Now, here we are. Me, my mom, my cousin who has no other place to go, and my 2 cats, completely without a home. We have to leave by the 31st. It breaks me to say it, but I brought this on myself. If I had just taken the extra hour back then, if I had signed that deed transfer when we had the chance, I would legally own the house right now. I would not be worrying about where I am going to live, or how I am going to find a place that accepts my disabled mother and our cats. We never had to rent before. We never even thought about it. And now, I do not meet any of the usual rental qualifications in the United States. I had one chance to secure our future, and I let it slip away.